Alright skeptics, here's the first of 3 videos I did just for you. Get what you want, followed by I hope I'm wrong, and finally no holds barred, all part of the expansion pack accompanying the video How It All Ends. I suggest that before you watch this video you first make sure you've watched the following, all part of the expansion pack to How It All Ends. Nature of science, risk management, why there is still debate, the Manpalo project, mechanics of global climate change, scare tactics, the solution, and God's will. This is because we are entering the home stretch of the argument, the really outlying details, and those videos contain rebuttals to the most common objections to the idea of human-caused global climate change, which I'll sometimes just refer to from now on as HEW, since that's how I've found most skeptics refer to it. And notice I'm referring to you as skeptics, not denialists. In a debate, it's just way more productive for each side to refer to the other as that side prefers. If you'd like to return the favor of civility, you can refrain from calling me an alarmist, although I am alarmed. And I think others should be more alarmed than they seem to be. And truth be told, if there were a big red handle that said global alarm on it, I'd probably pull it. But I wouldn't run. No running. Anyway, a lot in your cap use the term alarmist as an epithet. So how about just referring to me and my ilk as warmers, and I'll stick to calling you skeptics, which you may notice turns into hard-line skeptics the farther you make it through my videos. If, as you watch this, you find rebuttals popping up in your mind, please pause and ask yourself if I've already said something in a previous video which may answer your rebuttal. There's a lot of back and forth lines of reasoning, and it would take too much time to haul out each one for a review every time we hit on a piece of it. Okay, here we go. When I posted the most terrifying video you'll ever see in the spring of 2007, it garnered over 1 million views on various sites within a month. I quickly put out 3 more videos titled Patching Holes to answer the objections raised. Over the course of that online debate, I read well over 5,000 comments on my arguments, most of them critical. So I learned a bit about the skeptical viewpoint. In any technique of conflict resolution or negotiation, the most useful strategy is almost always about finding common ground. What is it that the 2 disagreeing sides both need, and is there a way to satisfy both those needs at the same time? So I just started brainstorming, listing universal human needs, and it jumped right out at me. Common objections to action on AGW, like we need to protect the economy and the government just wants more control of our lives, seem to me to really all come down to one thing: the need for self-determination. No one wants to be limited by others or told what to do. Specifically, it seems a majority of the comments could be lumped into 2 subcategories: economic self-determination, sort of the I need to put food on the table idea, and social or political self-determination, sort of the don't tread on me idea. So this video is going to proceed with the assumption, hopefully a reasonable one, that if you are a skeptic or a hardline skeptic who has watched all my other videos and still isn't convinced that action on climate change is worth it, it's because you feel a very strong need for economic and political self-determination, and you feel that that need or those needs are threatened by taking action on climate change. The purpose of this video is not to argue you out of those totally valid needs, but to show you how taking action is actually your best bet in getting those needs met. And that not taking action on climate change is actually a greater threat to your economic well-being and to your political and social liberties than is taking action. You wouldn't be at all misguided to ask me why I am taking such a great effort to do this. What do I have to gain? That's a good question to ask. Please remember to ask it of all your sources, not just the ones you disagree with. I don't have anything more or less to gain than the next guy. In fact, my motivations are completely pragmatic. I don't get paid for this. I'm not looking for a job and I'm not running for office. What I hope to gain is a less nasty world a few years down the road. Because I'm a science guy, and when I learned the specifics of the science of climate change, it scared the willies out of me. But you won't be around to see the difference, you might say. Well, I'm not convinced of that, and if you watched my video Scare Tactics, you'll know why. Plus, I've got 2 little girls who mean more to me than anything in the world, and I want to do whatever I can to eliminate the possibility that they inherit a Mad Max world. That's my motivation. So I guess it's kind of selfish. I want to feel like I was a responsible father and did everything in my power to protect my kids. I point out that my motivations are simply pragmatic because in my experience, that's the case for a lot of you too. So it's common ground for us. As one commentator wrote in response to what he thought was my environmental do-gooder pitch, quote, I can tell you right now that when the rubber meets the road, people are more concerned with their own personal economies than they are with the distant specter of global climate change. My personal economy, for better or worse, ends at my property line, end quote. So you and I are really motivated by the same thing. We just want the best for ourselves and our loved ones. And as I think you'll see, we don't need to be in conflict about that. So really, don't dismiss me as just another greenie shouting, save the planet. In fact, screw the planet, save us. Don't tell the tree huggers I said that. The planet will do fine on its own, and it's not even the race I'm concerned about. I think humanity will survive. What I'm concerned about is me and mine and our lifestyle. I'm doing this because my careful study of the science has shown me a future scenario that's unlikely, but still terrifyingly feasible, where I end up holding people off at gunpoint to keep them away from my grandkids' clean water supply. I'll do that, but I'd really rather not end up there. In evaluating how to meet our needs of self-determination, let's take a look at the problem as if we were a business, because if there's anything the free market does well, it's evolving businesses that are good at figuring out what's in their own best interest. How does a business go about deciding what to do? In general, couldn't we say that a business would do a careful analysis of future threats and opportunities, and then research which courses of action would be most likely to maximize benefits and minimize costs? So if you're a business and you discover the potential of a drastic threat to you, what would you do? You'd study it, right? You'd ask, what is the likelihood and what are the costs and benefits of various courses of action? You'd want the highest quality answer possible, so you'd hire the professionals. And the greater the potential threat, the more resources you'd be willing to devote to looking at it. If it might threaten the very existence of the business, you'd delay less important projects and divert funding so that you could hire the best experts available. And in that process, you'd be careful to combat your own psychology, because you know that no one, not even you, wants to change business as usual. And your hired help certainly doesn't want to end up being the bearer of bad news who gets shot. So to get the highest quality answer you can, you do everything you can to make sure you hire unbiased, independent people. You don't want yes men telling you what they think you want to hear. You want smart people telling you what is the most likely thing to happen, regardless of whether you like it or not. You tell them everything may be riding on this, so make darn sure your answer is correct. And being the best, they'd come back right away and tell you it's impossible to make sure because there's always uncertainty. And you'd be self-aware enough to know that it's a waste of money to hire experts and then not listen to them, simply because of your own human shortcomings of bias, fear, or stubbornness got in the way. So then you tell them, okay, then do it carefully. Check your answers, and then do it again, and then run it by others. We got to get this right, or as right as we can. And if, after all that, they do it all, and they come back to you with bad news, and you found yourself dismissing their answers thinking, that can't be right, you'd be self-aware enough to stop and ask, do I just think that because I don't like their answers? Am I unconsciously letting that influence my judgment of the quality of the answers? Because after all, you did go out of your way to hire expert, unbiased professionals. That doesn't mean they're infallible, but it does mean you better have some really compelling reasons to ignore what they say. So let's translate all this into the climate change debate. Before we examine what various experts say, let's put ourselves in the business leader's shoes when he asked himself whether he might be letting his likes and dislikes interfere with his judgment. It's my observation that a lot of climate skeptics have very strong Republican or libertarian leanings. As I explained in the video Why There Is Still Debate, this isn't surprising, since those philosophies have a general distaste for government, and acknowledging AGW would seem to imply increased government action. But let's be very explicit. It is not in your own interest to let your distaste for government, or Senior Gore for that matter, influence your judgment about physical reality. Those are two totally different things. It's also the very definition of bias, and it doesn't serve you. So be very deliberate to not confuse hostility towards government with uncertainty in climate science. Okay, let's examine what the experts out there have to say about protecting our economic self-determination in the face of action on climate change,